All right, we got a 2003 Honda Accord V6 automatic here. We're doing an engine swap on it. This engine's thrown a rod, so I've got an accurate TL back in the shop. 2005 with a 3.2 in it, and we're gonna try to swap them up. I think they bolt right in. Show you how to do this swap. I already got the other one out, so this one's going to go a little bit faster, a little bit swifter. So, all right, we took the battery out and the casing. We're going to take the battery tray out. 4 bolts up top, 2 10 millimeters over here, 2 12 millimeters, and under it you got to snake your hand through there. Bam, 2 bolts under there, 12 millimeters. I'll put them back in there. All right, so I'm not sure where I left off at, but we went on and drained the oil. We drained the coolant. Make sure you catch that in a nice catch pan and dispose of it properly. You can take the oil to AutoZone, O'Reilly's, whatnot. We went on and took off the radiator. 2 10 millimeter bolts here, 1, 2. And we got some connectors. We had a connector down here at the bottom for the fan. A couple of little snap-in pieces there. Pop those off, and we had a couple of connectors on the passenger side up top. And that one doesn't have to be disconnected, but it has to be unclipped from the radiator, because it's got a little, that little clip is clipped and connected to the radiator. So you can just press, I think, press on this in or out, and it slides right off. And then we're about to take off. We went on and put some Freon or rust away or stuff to help take off these old bolts here to the pre-cat. But we went on and sprayed those down front and back and on the bottom also. So we got 4 bolts here on the pre-cat. Got those sprayed off. We also disconnected the O2 sensor on the top of the pre-cat, and there's one at the bottom down there, and it connects. They both connect right here on the side. So this one's for the top one, this one's for the bottom one. But now we're going to take off the AC compressor, and we're going to do this. We're going to keep it as one unit. We're not going to disconnect the hose or anything like that. We're just going to take off the whole compressor and just have it down here at the bottom. So it's 4 bolts. I think they're 12 millimeters. There's one below it, 2, 1 down there, 3, and 1 up here under the alternator, 4. So we take those off and it'll come right out. And we don't have to do anything with the system or pressurize it, depressurize it, all that good stuff. All right, new day. I came out, went on and took the hood off. 4 bolts on each side of the hood, took those off. What else do we do? We on took the wheel off. Had to get to take this panel off right here. It was covering the crank up to get to the oil filter housing unit. It's 3 bolts on there. I think they're 12 millimeters, something like that. 3 bolts. It's got some wires plugged up to it. I haven't detached the wires yet, but it's got 2 wires that's hooked up to it. I had to loosen that up and take that off, because when you raise the motor up, it's going to be hitting a frame, so you need that loose or taken off. Then we came down. Had a bracket right here. Sorry for the moving around here, but there was a bracket that goes on the bottom of the pre-cat here. It goes to right here. So we took that bracket off, put the screws back in place. Then I disconnected the exhaust hanger, 2 bolts here, right here, that connects to the frame. So the exhaust could drop down some. Then we had to take the cover. There's like a heat shield by the exhaust. There's 3 bolts. Let me show you that real quick. All right, that's it right there. 3 bolts, probably 12 millimeter. You gotta finagle your way in there so we can get to, I'm sorry, I'm going upside down, but this axle, it's like a mount here, a frame, it mounts to the engine itself. So there are 3 bolts, the 14 millimeter, one on this side, on the driver's side, 2 on the passenger side. You can get to them on the back side of the boat. I was able to get to all of them this time on the back side with a 14 millimeter long socket and a ratchet. So these came out a lot easier than on the Acura. I think I just did it incorrectly on the Acura, or space may be a little different, but 3 14 millimeter bolts. All right, now we're going to get ready to start disconnecting it from the transmission. So there's a cover here on the engine going to the transmission to cover all the bell housing where the motor connects to the transmission. So the 2 10 millimeter bolts here, one right here, one up here. Took those out and put them back in, took the cover off. Now we have the flywheel and the whatever this is, but it's got about, I think, 8 to 10 millimeter bolts here. You have to take these off. This is what connects the engine to the transmission. So you have to do 1 bolt, then turn the transmission. I can't remember the size of the transmission bolt, but you'll turn it manually till you get to the next bolt and keep doing it, and so forth, so on, till you get all those out. Once you get those out, we'll start taking some of the bolts that connect the engine to the transmission, some of the mounting bolts here. So we got 2 bolts here that we'll have to take off. I think it's a total of 8 bolts that you have to take off to really disconnect it from the transmission. So we'll go ahead and take these off since we're down here. And then you have some on this side back here there, and we have to get to 1 or 2 of these bolts coming from the wheel well. So we'll come from this wheel well with a long extension and go all the way over here and get 1 of the bolts up here, and then we'll go from there. All right, so I got the bolts out. It looks like there are 8 of them. Got all 8 of them out, so it spins freely now. 10 millimeter on that. It's good to have a ratcheting socket, ratcheting wrench, 10 millimeter. Get those out. Turn the crank. With a 19 millimeter. That's a 19 millimeter. So I just use that and turn it, rotate it a little bit, and there you go. On to the next one. Hey guys, I want to chime in real quick because as doing the video and removing the motor, I didn't get some good footage or good details on a few things. So I want to jump in here and just go over a few things that I left out on that particular video as I was recording on the Honda. As far as doing the wires on it, I unplugged the wires on the transmission side. So if you follow the wiring from the engine, on the top of the engine, to all of the connectors on the transmission side, I unplugged all the hoses, going from the engine to the transmissions, and all the connectors. So I didn't have to take off the valve covers or anything like that. So I just plugged everything that I could. I followed every wire coming from the wiring harness on the engine. I follow everyone and unplugged it. I even had to unplug one that goes to the fuse box. So I had to open up the fuse box, get a 8 millimeter socket out, and take the wire off onto the fuse box. But it makes it a lot easier when you do it that way. So definitely unplug everything that's on the transmission side, so you lift the engine up and all the wires go with the engine. Also, I forgot to tell you that we took off the catalytic converters, as you probably can see on there. We removed the power steering pump the same way we did on the AC compressor. So it was on the power steering pump. there are 2 bolts to holding it on. So just take those 2 bolts, and to get to the bolts, you'll have to take one of that side, the passenger side motor mount, the top of it off, just to get to one of those bolts. Then you can put the motor mount back on. But the power steering, so we just took those 2 off, and those 2 bolts off, and we set the power steering pump to the side. So you don't have to drain anything like that unless you lift the engine up and knock one of the hoses off. But other than that, take the power steering hoses off. And also there's 8 bolts holding the engine to the transmission. On the outside, there's 10 in the flywheel and all that. 10 millimeters in the flywheel, but holding the engine to the transmission, there are 8 big bolts. There's 4 that's coming from the transmission going into the engine, and there's 4 on the engine side going into the transmission. And one of the transmission on the transmission side is coming from the starter, and it's the lower bolt on the starter. The top one is fine. You don't have to touch the top bolt on the starter. You just have to remove the bottom one. It's the long one on the bottom side of the starter. And there's also a wire at the back of the starter that you need to unplug on the wiring harness. It's a little bitty wire, not the one with the bolt, but it just pulls right off. You don't have to get any type of a tool for it. You just pull it off with your hand, and there you go. So hopefully this helps you, but continue watching the video. Thank you. Hey, like and subscribe if this helps. All right, so I got all my engine to transmission bolts out. It was 8 of them. I put them right there. Hopefully they'll stay, but I marked them when I took them out with a magic marker. Put BB means bottom back or bottom front, top front, TF, TB, top back. The starter bolt's the longest one, so I didn't mark the starter bolt. All right, so we're going to get ready to start taking off the motor mounts. We're going to get a strap on the engine as we take off the motor mounts, but we got one right here. That's 3 bolts. Right here, it's not necessary, but we're going to take this top cap off to get to 2 bolts on this one. So we're not going to take off this bolt right here, but we're going to take off these 2 and take this cap off. Then we're going to take this bolt off right here, and there's one right up under here. It's got all kind of gunk on there. We're going to take those 2 off, and then we're going to take, there's a back mount, kind of got a horseshoe bracket just like the front. We'll take that off, and then we will take the bolt on the back side of it off. So we'll take that brace off, and then we got to get back to the back on there and take 1 bolt off. It's the same bolt as on the front. It's this bolt right here we got to take off on the back, but we're going to leave this one on the front. We're going to take it off the back. Should have this thing snatched out right after lunch. All right, so finally got it out. It took, this is taking a leak right now, but yeah, got it out. I had some old dog bones from a motorcycle, so I hooked them right here at this connecting point right by the oil cap. I took it out, and I had to put some spacers here to clear it from tearing all this up. So got some spacers, and man, it looks like I forgot to unplug the oil filter housing unit there. Alrighty. Yep. Got it down on some rollers. Yep. Look at my horse. Yeah. Got my horse in the back of the truck. There you go. Mounted to the frame. But yeah, these little rollers come in handy. Found those in a property I bought. And hey, put them to work. Right. Guy said he had the transmission rebuilt. It looks like They did it yesterday. Looking good. Excited to put that Acura motor in there. Honda. VTEC